Hello, good morning, or maybe good afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to our metadata health check session. We're just waiting for people to join as they are still joining the session. Oh, there's already 20 people. A very popular morning. Good to share it with you all. I believe you should be able to say hello in the chat, so don't be shy. Say hello, say where you're from. I'm connecting from Cambridge in the UK, and we have a very foggy morning here. All right. Well, I shall start progressing with the slides. Hopefully, if anybody else is going to join us, they won't miss much when we do the introductions. So our agenda for today is to talk about the importance of the metadata. I very much hope that those of you who have joined us have at least an idea about that. But we'll discuss that and demonstrate. We'll demonstrate our participation reports in action, showing a few examples, at which point I will also invite you all to look at your own participation report, but because there is nothing like having a practical go at seeing how we can all improve the completeness of the metadata for your publications. And at the end, we'll also have the time to ask questions, and myself and my colleagues will help you out answering those questions, and we'll be able to show some things depending on which your method for depositing your metadata is. We'll try to answer questions and show how things work. Here we go. So indeed, you can use the chat and you can react to things, and I encourage you to also use the Q&A box to ask your questions. And here we are. So as I said, I'm Cora Koschitz. I am Director of Community for Crossref. I am joined here today by Marina Kovalyova, who is our Member Experience Manager, and she will be supporting you in the chat and responding to your questions and making sure that we don't miss any. And also Lena Stoll, our Program Lead in the Programs and Services team, who has recently been working on making fantastic improvements to our record registration form. And she will show some of that kind of new options for those of you who use the manual form as well. So going back to basics, as you know, through your member obligations and you can participate in Crossref by registering unique DOIs for each item you publish, and you provide metadata records alongside the identifier. You can display this, well, actually, you should be displaying that identifier on your landing page for that published item. And you also can keep the metadata record associated with the DOI up to date, which means that you can always provide more metadata and update the records over time. Either because of you are becoming aware of more metadata for that record, or potentially because you have just gained new technical capacity to add some additional elements to the records. So what metadata we collect or you can register with your records. The basic bibliographic metadata, of course, like titles, dates, authors, and abstracts. But also the full text URLs for text mining and similarity check if you happen to use that service. You can use our Crossmark service, for which you would record your updates, retractions, and corrections, and you would need to have a policy on how those are handled as well to be able to participate in Crossmark. You can definitely, and we encourage that more and more, register relationships, things like versions, translations, data, references, and citations. This really helps to provide additional context for the works that you're registering and kind of place them better within the research nexus, which I'll talk about in a minute as well. Obviously, you can. We also thought things related to the provenance. So where does the metadata come from? Who is the publisher, funder, or steward of the information? And there are some subject-specific metadata, like the clinical trial information, that we also encourage you to include, should that be relevant for your publications. And funding information, including the funder registry IDs, and very soon also, or even instead of those, that will be accepting raw IDs for funders. And we also encourage for you to register the award numbers or the grant, the Crossref grant identifiers if they are available. So the other things, obviously, there are contributor and affiliations identifiers as well. So we encourage the use of ORCIDs and raw IDs to disambiguate those affiliations and credits. All right, and this all contributes and builds together a research nexus, which we envisage as together as with the rest of the community as this kind of interoperable, rich network of reusable and openly available relationships connecting research organizations, people, things, and actions. And we hope that this, because we make our metadata or metadata you register with us openly available, we hope that this record will be serving the global community. It can be built upon forever. It can benefit the society in terms of gaining more new insights from those connections, and supporting things like further analysis for science of science work. Why all is this important? Well, the metadata that you are depositing with Crossref is then being used downstream by many other organizations, and quite a lot of the scholarly ecosystem now relies on the metadata provided through Crossref. So the primary user of the metadata that our members deposit with us are our members themselves. So very often your own organization might be making use of the metadata within the corpus of that Crossref looks after, but also other members. But there are other many tools or organizations that support discoverability, look into transparency, also things that that host content, help bibliographic management. The libraries rely on it. There are many metrics and reporting services. There's also collaborations that kind of stem from that, and scholarly sharing of networks. And things related to author profiling, annotations, and so forth. So the main tool that we offer to our members to support as full participation in the research nexus as possible, meaning the provision of full metadata for your content, is the participation report. So I would like to ask Marina if you could put the link to the participation report right now in the chat, and I encourage you all to try and see if you can display that slide for yourselves, so that we can work alongside each other and look at the report, and you can explore it yourself as well, so you can ask questions in the chat. I'll stop sharing the screen for a second because I would like to load the actual live report as well. And here we go. Now we'll share again. So before you browse for a specific member, you should be displayed with just a search window, and then, as you can see, you can put a member name. Please remember that you can only find organizations by their member name, not by the journal title. So if you happen to be a member that has a journal title and the member name that is the same, that is actually the same name, then that should be easy enough for you. However, many of our members will have a slightly different name. So, for example, there will be a library or university department or an organizational name for a member that you'll be able to put in here. So for example, I've got here basically a university publisher, TIB. And as you can see, if I select them, you can see there the proportion of their content that has different important metadata elements associated with it. So what about this report? Something to keep in mind. Obviously, here you have the member name displayed, and you can see the number of items we're even talking about. We're talking here about journal articles specifically, and that is displayed here on the side. For members who have more different types of publishing that they register with us, you can take a look at different types here. I'll demonstrate that in a minute. Before we go into that, I would like to show that this toggle is quite important. You can change between the current content, which is more or less the last 2 calendar years of your content that you've registered. You can look at back file, so everything before those 2 years. So right now, the back file would be up or anything before 2023. So 2022 and before, if I remember correctly. And then you can also look at all time. As you can see, the number here for the journal articles or the registered content items is changing depending on which one I select. You can also search for specific, here you can search for specific journal title if you're interested in that. So for example, I am aware that this TAB Open Publishing publishes the journal Glass Europe. So I can see for that journal specifically how the metadata looks like. So for example, if you're an organization where that you looks after several different journals, but they might have separate operations, then you can take a look at specific journals here. All right. And so I've mentioned also that you can look at other types. So we should try and see, let's try and see Manchester University Press. Okay, so I believe they would have books, and indeed they do. So as you can see here, if you also publish books or book chapters, you can take a look here in how that looks like. All right, so I will select eLife here because that is a good example of where there is a good coverage of most of the metadata types. You might see, the other members that I have just displayed examples of before might have been missing a proportion of one of them, and that is pretty normal. So let's just consider how we can improve the coverage of your own metadata. So then you can see that there is 11 metadata elements currently included in the reports. Importantly, we've only just recently, well, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, added the affiliations and ROR IDs. So those 2 elements are new in the report. They are not new in our metadata. So hopefully you were kept abreast of those developments over the years. However, for now you can also see the proportion of those specific elements covered in your metadata for your content. And we find that for many of our members, the affiliations and ROR IDs, as well as the funder IDs information, are the commonly missing parts of the record. So I do encourage you to take a look at that for yourself and see if that is something that you would like to improve. However, the first and probably most crucial part of this report is the references. Inclusion of references in your metadata really supports discoverability of content for people that you're linking to, and potentially for your own content if you have citations to content that you have published previously. So this is really important. And as you can see here, you can hover over the little I for information icon and find links to things like why this is important, where can I learn more, and importantly, how can I improve this score? So this obviously, how to improve those scores depends on what content registration method you're using. And we are delighted to see that those of you who have joined us today are using a good diversity of methods for registering your content. So I think I'll now invite Lena to talk a little bit about the web registration form and its new version, and then we will look into registering references also via the OJS. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and Lena will be able to show you more relevant information for those of you who use the web deposit form.
Great, thanks very much, Cora. Let me just make sure that everyone will be able to see my screen. I'm sure you'll let me know if that's not the case. Good. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's here today who let us know when you registered for this webinar what method of registering your metadata you're using, which has been really useful for us to prepare. We saw that quite a few of you use our web deposit form, which is a long-standing simple method that's served our members for many years in being able to register their content without having to fiddle with XML files. It does have a few key gaps that make it a little bit challenging to really make your metadata as rich as possible, and references are a good example of that. If you want to add references to your records and improve the score in your participation report, and you use the web deposit form, many of you will probably already know this, that's currently not possible directly in the web deposit form. What you can do is that you can complete a registration of a journal article in the web deposit form and then wait a little while until the registration has been completed. And then you can go to a separate tool called Simple Text Query and add the reference list to the article record after the fact. So you have to go into the web deposit form, complete your submission, wait to get a confirmation email, and then go to this other tool called Simple Text Query. We'll show you a screenshot of that in a second. And what Simple Text Query does is that it checks the plain text references. You can just copy and paste them from the article's bibliography, and it tries to match them to existing Crossref DOIs that are already in our system. And it tells you what those DOIs are, which you can then also copy and paste and use for your own needs. And then you can choose to deposit those references that have been matched into the metadata record. For those of you who haven't seen Simple Text Query yet, it kind of looks like the web deposit form, similar design. You can reach it at this link, which I'm sure Marina will put in the chat for you if she hasn't already. And this is what it looks like. You just copy and paste, like I said, the plain text references into a text box, and you can click submit. And where there are existing Crossref DOIs that match these citations, the system finds them, and then you can, crucially, this doesn't deposit the references into the article record yet. There's another step where you have to click deposit at the bottom and then sign in using your Crossref credentials, and only then can you actually add these references to your article record. So that's a very important thing to do if you're using the web deposit form in order to make sure that you're doing reference linking. But it is a little bit of extra effort. And that's one of the reasons why we've been working over the past year and a half or so on a new helper tool that you can use to register journal articles. And Cora has set me up beautifully to brag about this a little bit, so I'm going to do that now, to show you on for the example of references how that works in our new tool. So that will be this presentation. Maybe just a couple of points of general information first about this new tool for those of you who haven't seen it yet, which will probably be quite a few of you unless you're following our community forum, which I do recommend. This is just general information. Obviously, if you want to improve your score and your participation report on any element, the easiest thing you can do is going forward, always including that element in your registrations. You can also add any element to existing metadata one by one by using our helper tools. And there are some things that you can also upload in bulk using the web deposit form. We're not going to focus on that now unless we have questions about it. In this new tool, there's also the option of, once you've submitted a record, downloading a file of the record with all of its metadata, which is in a JSON format, and you can then load that back into the tool later on if you want to edit any of the metadata or add to it, and you don't have to type it all back in like you do in the web deposit form. This is where you can find the new tool. It currently allows you to register journal article and grant records, not all record types yet, but obviously references are a big topic for journal articles, so that's what we're going to focus on now. Another general note, whatever way you use to update or change anything in the metadata on your existing records or register new ones, it can take a little while, in some cases up to a day, for the scores in your participation report to update accordingly. So if you're adding, say, similarity check URLs to a lot of your records and the score doesn't go up immediately, don't be alarmed. This is just a matter of the data making its way through our system into our APIs and then into the participation report. So you may need to be a little bit patient. So for those of you who use the web deposit form, again, you already know that you can't directly submit references in the tool. There are some other fields that are not in the web deposit form that we have built into this new tool, such as author affiliation metadata, including ROR IDs, which Cora already mentioned briefly, that are unique persistent identifiers for research producing organizations. There's also a lot more checking going on in the new tool of the input that you enter. There's in the web deposit form, it's quite easy to make a little typo or to copy and paste something wrong, have a digit missing in an ORCID ID or something, and then for that reason the deposit fails and you have to start over. In this new tool, we're catching those kinds of human errors earlier on so that you can fix it immediately, and that makes for a simpler experience. One more caveat is that if your journal does not have an ISSN, then you can't use this tool yet. That's for technical reasons. I won't go too much into that. But since references are arguably the most important element in the participation report, let's look real quick at how that looks in our new tool. So if you used the web deposit form before, then you're familiar with the basic concept behind this. It's a form that you fill out with your article's metadata and your journal's metadata. For references, there's a simple input field here, which in many ways looks a lot like the simple text query tool I just showed you. It's just a field that you paste the article's bibliography into. You do have to make sure that each reference starts on a new line, which is also the case in simple text query or in OJS if you're using that to register your journal articles. And then once you submit the article record, the same matching happens in our system that would happen in simple text query, where the system tries to find Crossref DOIs that already exist for all of the cited works. And if it can match them, then there will be a successful reference link made between the newly registered article and the cited one. And all of these citations flow into our cited by service and a lot of downstream systems that deal with citation data. And yeah, so there's no need to wait for the initial article registration to be complete and then go to a separate tool. You can just do all of this directly in the new tool. So that's one example of how things are a little bit simpler now. Should we go to some questions maybe?
Sure.
I see there's been a lot of activity in the chat. Well, let me just stop sharing for a second. I can also easily talk about more metadata fields, no problem.
Yeah, okay. Have we got any questions about the registration, content registration form? Because if not, I might just do a little quick presentation about the OJS side of thing. Oh, okay. I can see a question here from Eva Grabaric Andonovsky, sorry. So we have text mining URLs showing 0%, although we are uploading links to the content. The link leads to the PDF of the article. Are we doing it wrong? The similarity check URLs are 100%. There is a specific field for text mining URLs, which is specifically for that purpose, for machine text mining analysis of the text. If you have been putting links in that specific field, then it's basically what I'm trying to say. It's not the same as the link to your content on your website, not necessarily the same as just having a URL as a landing page. It needs to be also entered in the text mining field if you wish for that to be displayed to users who or tools who use the technique of text mining for that purpose. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that would be one thing to check if the links are included in the text mining section. Whether or not a PDF is a suitable format for this actually is a good question, and I will need to go back and see. Hopefully before this session, I'll be able to answer that. However, what I know for sure is that the fact that you're including a link to your landing page is not the same, and the links need to be also entered if it's the same link into the text mining URL section. Now, for some members or some publishers, the text mining link will be different to their overall landing page because, for example, it will be for example, for the content that is not openly available, the link might differ. All right. I see no more questions at this time. So I'll just have a quick, let's just have a quick look at the OJS. Come on. Yes, I did want to share it. So as you can see here, we'll have a little bit of a follow-up on how to do the OJS registration. So there is a few things just to remember from the initial setup. I do apologize if I teach you all the things that you know already, because presumably you have a setup for your OJS. However, just to make sure, you need to ensure that you added the DOI plugin and entered your Crossref prefix into the plugin. If you have any fears around whether you have done that correctly, I think Marina has been working in the background to make sure that we have all the prefixes to hand if anybody has questions about that. And then in terms of adding your metadata records to your records, ensure that you've enabled the Crossref XML OJS plugin and added your Crossref credentials here. So as you can see, it's a little blurry, but you can see that there are your credentials added normally with a password in the OJS to be able to add your records or metadata elements to your records. All of this is explained in our documentation. So you can certainly go to that page after the session and review that in more detail. And in terms of adding the missing metadata elements to the records one by one, well, obviously we encourage you to include the things that you found are missing into all your future DOIs metadata for metadata, DOI metadata records. This way, you will, you won't need to do that twice. You will save yourself some work into the future. However, for the ones that you might have identified and you think you might be able to complete the information in the records, to be able to add to an existing record, you need to find the article in your OJS instance, and then you unpublish it, add the missing metadata elements to the existing record, saving them as you go so you don't lose anything, and then republish. And this way we'll get all the metadata elements together for that DOI, and it will then end up in not just in our database, but it will also be then possible to query that through our REST API. So in a way, you can even check yourself if this has gone the way that you were hoping for. If you want to add missing metadata elements to your records in bulk, that is possible. You can do that for a few different types, especially for funding data, similarity checks URLs, and text and data mining URLs. So for that, you will need to you will need to, again, remember that it might take up to 24 hours for the changes to reach the participation report. And there is a form for bulk addition of the metadata with the XML. I think there will be a link in the chat about that. Okay, and I guess because you might be using a different version of OJS, your screenshots might look different, but the process should be the same. If you have encountered problems in this process, or you are trying it right now and it doesn't quite work the way that we have presented or you expect, then obviously you can ask questions, and we'll try to help you troubleshoot as much as we can. Okay. So for the references specifically, here is how you go about this. You find your references in the OJS, the section. We obviously recommend the reference linking and deposit plugin. If you have that in your instance, that will make things certainly easier. And the plugin will use our API to check against your plain text references to locate possible DOIs. And that really is helpful to do the reference linking and therefore do the two-way connections between the publications. And it also allows to display reference lists of the article landing page in OJS. Okay, well, we have not covered those things yet, so I shall go back to their report. We still have a few minutes, so we can take a quick look at a quick glance and at some of the other metadata elements, especially those that are commonly missing. Here we go. So another thing that we're encouraging to use is the abstracts. Again, these you can use. You can deposit them through any of the deposition forms that you're using, and ORCID IDs. ORCID IDs is something that you likely need to request from your authors to provide, either on submission or potentially later on after publication. Those can be added. Like all the metadata to your records, as well as you might want to display them. Crossref has an author auto update application, so that if you're adding your author's ORCID to your metadata to the related publications, then there is an automation that alerts the author that those things have been added, and they can agree for those to automatically be added to their ORCID records, which really supports your author's experience of being able to create their own record of publications without needing to kind of manually enter everything. Affiliations and ROR IDs, we've mentioned those a few times, and as Lena has highlighted, that you can now include those if you're using their record registration form, the new version of it, not the old web deposit form, I'm afraid. And the difference, I think I did have a question once about the difference between affiliations and ROR IDs. So the ROR IDs are identifiers for institutions. Most institutions have them. There could be some occasional cases where an institution might not have it. For example, if there is a nonprofit that is not a regular scholarly institution but happens to produce a report of scholarly kind of validity and importance, then the publication counts as their scholarly record. However, that organization may not have an ROR-ID. So in this case, they would only be possible to put them as affiliation with the name of the organization. So the affiliation is basically text-based name of an organization. Another thing that we do encourage you to use is the funder registry and funding award numbers. Again, the funding award numbers, and soon we'll include the option of including specifically the Crossref grant ID numbers here, as more and more funders adopted our grant linking system tool. And those are really important for funders who support research behind your publications, and so that allows them to understand and evaluate their funding programs and deliver, and it supports authors in delivering on their kind of mandates around or requirements around the types of publishing and what kind of publications are needed from their work. It also supports in terms of evaluating the impact of the work of the scholars, as well as the kind of performance of the funding programs from those institutions that have funded the work. Crossmark enabled on your articles is another thing that you can do. The Crossmark service is a little bit complicated to apply, so if anybody has specific questions about that, we'll delve into that more closely. It does help your readers to understand whether the content they are looking at is up to date. So this Crossmark service allows you to have a little widget on top of your page, and it also has a link from the PDF to see if there are any updates to that content. So for example, if you have issued a correction or specifically retraction for a content, it is very important to alert your readers to the fact that this particular piece of content might have been changed since they last seen it, or might have been, for what variety of reasons, invalidated in the meantime. So they should not, for example, cite it or base their research upon the results presented within. All right. I think I will stop sharing at this point and see if there are any questions.
We might answer the latest question live, maybe, while we're here, about similarity check URLs and how to see all of the DOIs that do not have it, because there is a handy way of doing that. So let me find the correct link and share my screen real quick. We do have a tool for this because it's a very, very common question. So in order to participate in similarity check, you need to ensure that 90% of your content has similarity check full text URLs in the metadata, so that you are doing your part in participating and contributing content. So we have a tool. I can send you the link in a second, which you can also find by searching for similarity check eligibility. You will get to this page where there is a little widget where you can search for, if you know your member ID, great. If you don't, you can search for your member name, same as in the participation report. This is not your journal. This is the Crossref member entity. So let's see what we can find in this example, or maybe, okay, there you go. This is probably the correct one. And then the tool will run a check to see what percentage. Oh, okay, you actually, according to this, already on 92%, which is great. You might be, if you're looking at your participation report and you're seeing 84%, that might be because by default, the participation report will show you only current content from the last 2 calendar years, whereas this tool will check across also your backlist content. Maybe the scores are higher in your backlist content. Okay, well, in this case, I can't show you the spreadsheet download. If the score was below 90%, there would be a link that lets you download a spreadsheet of all of the DOIs that are missing similarity check URLs so that you can update them. But in this case, it actually looks like if you do this, you'll find you're eligible and you can send your application if you'd like to participate in similarity check, if you're not already. That went better than expected, sorry. I'll send the link now in the chat though for anyone else interested.
Thank you. In the meantime, I have asserted that a link to a PDF for full text mining should be eligible. So long as you're including it in that field, it will be fine. All right. There were some questions in the meantime that I think Lena, you have been typing answers to. So I'll just highlight them here for those who haven't spotted them. There was a question from Matic about whether all missing metadata can now be added with a new helper tool. So I think not all possible metadata. However, all the metadata that is highlighted in the participation report you can include with the new helper tool that Lena has presented. There will be other types of metadata, going back to the slide that I've shown before about the variety of different metadata that you can support, that you can provide for your records. That would not be possible to add through the helper tool. Things like the relationships, for example, are not included in there. But all the elements that are included in our participation reports, all of those elements are now possible to include in the when you're registering your records through the new helper tool. There was also another question from Eva about exporting metadata from the online submission system directly to Crossref. Lena, would you like to take that one? You can see you've put things here about the integrations of the API.
About the the tailor-made submission system. Yeah. Sure. So a large number of manuscript submission systems are integrated with our APIs already. And so that there will be settings somewhere if you are an account administrator in the system, you can choose some of the details of what metadata you want to send to Crossref, put in your Crossref account details to make sure that everything is set up properly. Without knowing which system specifically you're using, it's of course hard to say if there is an integration already. Maybe tailor-made also means that it's actually your organization itself that has built it, in which case your colleagues will know best whether there's an integration. It is something that if it doesn't already exist, is often on the roadmap of manuscript submission systems to be a true kind of end-to-end solution from authors submitting all the way to maintaining metadata with Crossref. But yeah, if you can let us know which system you're using specifically, maybe we can find some more information. Oh, but I see I already got a response saying I will ask the organization maintaining the system what is needed. It could also be that just the setting is hidden somewhere where you haven't found it yet.
Yes, that is often a little, yes, a little treasure. Yes, treasure trove. All right. There was also a question about Crossmark, and thank you very much, Marina, for sharing the link. I'll just quickly show we don't have a lot of time now, but I'll quickly just show that this is the documentation around participating in Crossmark. This is a little bit more complex than just simply adding your metadata to the records, because you need to set up to be able to participate in Crossmark in the first place. You need to hopefully you would already have a policy page that will show your policy around your basically making post-publication updates to your content. And to be able to participate in Crossmark, you need to designate a landing page for that policy. So it needs to be publicly available in there, and it needs to be registered with us as a record itself. So that will be the first part of this. And then you kind of add a policy page to all of your content, as you can see here, explained. And then in the XML deposit, for example, you can register content with that information. I am not sure. Actually, in terms of Crossmark, I did say that all of the elements from the participation report are possible to include in the new helper tool, but actually that is the one that I'm not sure. Is the Crossmark information included? I would
Not
be
yet.
quite
No, I wrote this in my answer too. Crossmark and text and data mining URLs are not represented yet in the new tool.
And obviously importantly, then those are the types of updates that you can add to your content to be able to reflect, and that will be reflected back to your readers so they can tell whether the content is up to date. All right, so I think we're just a minute over time. I will very quickly go back to remind everyone about how the content can be updated. So if you need to fill in the gaps in your report, please make sure that I've obviously included these metadata elements in your future DOI registrations to save yourself additional work. But in terms of updating the DOIs, you can update them one by one with the OJS plugin or the web deposit form, or sending us the XML. And you can also update them in bulk, as I've mentioned, especially the specific elements that you can upload as a CSV file in our admin tool. Oh, and license information here as well. I think that was not on the previous slide. Okay, and obviously you can get help. You can review our documentation. We encourage you to interact with us on the community forum. The community is very helpful as well, and our technical support team is always present at the forum and will answer your questions there if you ask through that. And you can also contact us directly. All right. Thank you for everyone. Thank you for all your questions. I hope it has been helpful. And have a good day or good evening, whichever it is for you.